The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Tuesday. It is September 8th, 2020. Thanks so much for joining me. I want to begin with the happenings over the weekend. A lot happening in terms of the presidential race, Donald Trump. But I want to play this clip of Donald Trump yesterday that he ostensibly criticized the Pentagon chiefs as a way of defending himself from the criticisms that he's been receiving about his alleged comments referring to soldiers as suckers, dead soldiers, as losers and suckers. I want to give you the proper context because some people are interpreting this statement that I'm getting ready to play of Donald Trump as some type of anti-war sentiment, meaning that Donald Trump is hard anti-war, doesn't want to go to war, or it doesn't want to support what we call the military-industrial complex, that corporate system that constantly drains the American coffers of billions of dollars every single year and funnels those dollars into war-making companies, corporations, that military-industrial complex that has been in place for over 70 years since the end of World War II. Some people are taking these statements from Donald Trump to make it seem as though he is anti-war, when in fact he is not anti-war. I want to preface it with that because that's the bane of my morning. People who are trying to take this statement, what good is a disingenuous statement? That's like me saying that, I don't even have an example yet, but let me play this clip of Donald Trump criticizing Pentagon chiefs and ostensibly criticizing the military-industrial complex that now has people saying, oh, Donald Trump, he's anti-war. Get the hell out of here.
Biden shipped away our jobs, threw open our borders, and sent our youth to fight in these crazy, endless wars. And it's one of the reasons the military, I'm not saying the military is in love with me, the soldiers are. The top people in the Pentagon probably aren't because they want to do nothing but fight wars so that all of those wonderful companies that make the bombs and make the planes and make everything else stay happy. But we're getting out of the endless wars. You know how we're doing. We defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate, 100%. When I came in, it was a mess. It was all over. They have it in a certain color, all ISIS. A year later, I said, where is it? It's all gone, sir. Because of you, it's all gone. Because of my philosophy, but it's all gone. I said, that's good. Let's bring our soldiers back home. Some people don't like to come home. Some people like to continue to spend money. One cold-hearted globalist betrayal after another, and that's what it was. Biden supported NAFTA. He supported China's entry into the World Trade Organization. Two disasters. The most disastrous.
We're getting out of the endless wars. It's 4 years in. Donald Trump has not ended a single war. Donald Trump has increased the number of drone strikes. Donald Trump has increased the Pentagon budget, and he's increased it to the tune of $120 billion. He's increased the number of weapons exports that we have in this country, contracts that we have in this country. Donald Trump is not anti-war. And I'm extremely serious about this particular point because of a reason I will begin to unpack for you. What this faux anti-war sentiment gives to Republicans, the people who put us in the situation that we are literally in right now. It gives them the opportunity to be both the warmongers as well as receive the support of the anti-war movement. What sense does that make? Donald Trump supported the war in Iraq. Okay? And he has exacerbated all of our geopolitical positions, period. He has pushed us to the brink of war on so many occasions, and it's only because of the restraint of the other nations that we are not engaged in brand new wars. But he has certainly not ended the previous wars. But he gets the veneer of pretending as though he's anti-war because every now and then he throws you all a bone, and all of a sudden, like, oh, well, he said something that is factually true, but the sentiment behind it is to provide himself cover for all of the negative things that he said about soldiers that he's taking flack for this weekend. And so what he's done is he's thrown the anti-war movement a bone and say, see, I know the game. Everybody knows the game. Everybody knows that this entire federal government would rather spend its entire budget on weapons instead of doing anything for the people. And that goes between both parties. Everybody knows that game. But who is doing something to fix that game? It's certainly not Donald Trump. It is most certainly not. And now people like, Glenn Greenwald, my friend over at The Intercept, he's tweeted out, oh, well, what Donald Trump said wasn't so bad because, Dwight Eisenhower said it in his closing, his last speech leaving office. His famous military-industrial complex speech. I'll play a portion of it for you. Yeah, but what did Dwight Eisenhower? He complained about it, but what did he do to stop it? He could have killed it in its infancy, but that's neither here nor there. The point is you have to be able to discern between genuine efforts to undermine the military-industrial complex and to retract and contract the American imperialism and Donald Trump doing what he does. He knows how to pit people against each other. And he's doing all of this just to cover for the fact that it came out last week that he referred to dead soldiers as suckers and losers. And now folks are running around from the anti-war left saying, oh, well, he got that right. No, he didn't get it right because of the reason he's talking about it has nothing to do with actually challenging the industrial complex, the military industrial complex. I'm going to get an analogy here before this episode is over. It may not come into the patrons episode, but at the end of the day, when somebody says something in bad faith, you don't have to give them credit for the statement that they said in bad faith. He did not say that as a means of suggesting that there should be something done about it. He said that as a means of suggesting, hey, look over here. Don't pay any attention to the fact that I called dead soldiers suckers and losers. It's absolutely absurd. And this is one of the things. Now, here's one of the reasons I'm so serious about this particular story is because what happens with my friends on the left, people who are in these far left circles like I regularly live in, is that they oftentimes are so desperate to fight the war complex in this country, and rightfully so, that they take the bones of people, they take the fragments, the scraps, they take the crumbs off the tables of warmongers and they accept it as an anti-war sentiment. It's just like Rand Paul. Rand Paul has never been anti-war. He just knows that if he says a couple of good talking points about being anti-war, he gets to go around with the badge of nobility from supporters saying, well, I don't like his economic policies, but he's anti-war. No, Rand Paul is not anti-war. No, Donald Trump is not. I can't believe I have to bring myself to say this. He assassinated an Iranian general just for shits and giggles, and he still brags about it to this day. He's in bed with the Saudis who killed, brutally murdered Jamal Khashoggi. And he has no problems with it. He has increased. He has, as much as people talk about Barack Obama's droning, he actually increased the frequency and the intensity of the drone strikes. But because he threw people a fragment, a crumb off of his warmongering table, people are like, oh, he's got some anti-war sentiment. And what that would allow people to do is because there's really no movement that is more that is more intense than the anti-war movement. And so if Donald Trump gets the veneer of being anti-war, then all of a sudden we're going to hear nonstop talking points about Donald Trump being anti-war as a justification for keeping him in power, because somehow keeping him in power is going to reduce the amount of war that we see globally. And yet and still, over the last 4 years, we have seen that Donald Trump has literally done nothing to contract the military-industrial complex, to contract American imperialism. In fact, he has increased the amount of weapons exports that the United States engages in. He has increased the number of drone strikes, and he has put us in so many untenuous situations that if we hadn't just gotten lucky, or if the other nation was not as belligerent as Donald Trump, the only reason we have not gone into a new war basically is because we've gotten lucky. Because other nations have been more moderate. Other nations have been more temperate. Other nations have understood the fact that they're dealing with a sociopath in the White House. So I refuse. One of the things that I will get out of character around is people trying to give and lend Donald Trump the veneer of being anti-war when in fact he is doing everything to expand the military-industrial complex. And what we can't afford to do is allow our good intentions of seeing this military-industrial complex contracted and American imperialism contracted, allow that to be manipulated by someone who has zero intention or concern. Donald Trump does not have one bit of emotional or moral or a lick of compassion about the fight against war. He will just as soon send teenagers to their deaths in a war to get reelected as he would sabotage the post office to get reelected. He will do anything to satisfy his ego, including taking us into war. And it's only been luck or the diligent temperance of another foreign entity, another foreign power that has kept us from being in yet another war, period. Donald Trump's Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, is in trouble. He's in trouble for two different reasons that he's in trouble. I want to talk about the first one. He's in trouble because he is being investigated for illegal campaign finance contributions, pressuring his employees to make donations and then refunding them those donations. And he's doubly in trouble because when he testified before Congress recently, he adamantly denied those accusations. According to the Washington Post, Louis DeJoy's prolific campaign fundraising, which helped position him as a top Republican power broker in North Carolina and ultimately as head of the U.S. Postal Service, was bolstered for more than a decade by a practice that left many employees feeling pressured to make political contributions to GOP candidates. Money DeJoy later reimbursed through bonuses, former employees say. 5 people who worked for DeJoy's former business, New Breed Logistics, say they were urged by DeJoy's aides or by the chief executive himself to write checks and attend fundraisers at his 15,000 square foot gated mansion beside a Greensboro, North Carolina country club. There, events for Republicans running for the White House and Congress routinely fetched $100,000 or more apiece. 2 other employees familiar with New Breed's financial and payroll system said DeJoy would instruct that bonus payments to staffers be boosted to help defray the cost of their contributions, an arrangement that would be unlawful. So, I mean, just to make it pretty plain for everyone, what he has been doing or what he's been accused of doing over the years is by insisting that because make sure that people understand why someone would do this. Campaign contribution limits. You can only give so much, right? And to get around that, instead of finding people who authentically wanted to donate to a candidate, what he would say was he would have his staff or he himself would pressure his employees to donate $10,000, and then he would let them get a bonus from the company to cover that. And so he basically paid for the political influence that he has in the Republican Party that ultimately led to him becoming the Postmaster General because he was such a prolific fundraiser. This is illegal. In fact, the propagandist in chief for the Republicans, for the conservative movement in this country, Dinesh D'Souza, actually went to jail for doing the same exact thing, but on a much smaller scale, on a single case scale. From the Daily Beast, this is what Dinesh D'Souza was found guilty of, or he pled guilty, rather. And this is what Dinesh D'Souza actually said himself. He said, "I knew that causing a campaign contribution to be made in the name of another was wrong and something that law forbids." D'Souza said, according to Newsday, "I deeply regret my conduct." Now, this was a part of a plea deal. He pled guilty in order to avoid additional charges. Benjamin Brafman, D'Souza's attorney, added in his press statement, Mr. D'Souza agreed to accept responsibility for having urged two close associates to make contributions of $10,000 each to the unsuccessful 2012 Senate campaign of Wendy Long, and then reimbursing them for their contributions. Given the technical nature of the charge, there was no viable defense. And so he pled guilty to this. Now, D'Souza was later pardoned by Donald Trump. This type of activity happens, and it is a part of this corrupt culture. But now the Postmaster General is not only under investigation for doing this, based on the testimony of his former employees, he's now facing perjury. Perjury before Congress, lying before Congress, because he adamantly denied it in this clip. Listen in.
Did you pay back several of your top executives for contributing to Trump's campaign by bonusing or rewarding them?
That's an outrageous claim, sir, and I resent it.
I'm just asking a question.
The answer is no.
So you did not bonus or reward any of your executives?
No.
Anyone that you solicited for a contribution to the Trump campaign?
No, sir.
Not in whole or in part?
Actually, during the Trump campaign, I wasn't even working at my company anymore.
Well, we want to make sure that campaign contributions are legal. So all your campaign contributions are legal.
I'm fully aware of legal campaign contributions.
Well, what if
and I resent the assertion, sir. What are you accusing me of?
He's accusing you of exactly what the Washington Post is now reporting, that 7 total employees have stated that this is exactly what you were doing, Postmaster General DeJoy. The fact that you were doing this in order to get around and to circumvent the campaign finance laws that limit your contributions. So he's facing a lot of DeJoy is in trouble. DeJoy is in trouble because not only is he facing this investigation, which is going to be a North Carolina-based investigation, he's also going to be facing federal investigation. He's also going to be looking at perjury. In addition to everything that he was doing to undermine the post office just ahead of the 2020 election, he is in serious trouble. And let's see how this plays out for him.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
I want to take a headline from the New York Times. Donald Trump as the defender of white America. More and more increasingly so, Donald Trump has positioned his 2020 campaign to be one that will protect white America. Obviously, he will never say white America explicitly, but he will say stuff like this. Listen in.
Suburbs are next. If you elected this guy, the suburbs would be overwhelmed with violence and crime. So that's where we are. This is the most important election in the history of our country. So that's it. We'll see you in Florida. Thank you very much.
So if you elect Joe Biden, the suburbs are going to be under attack. And he said it a lot more expressly on Twitter this morning. I want to pull up that tweet because this has been his positioning. This has been his campaign. This is what he's running on. He is running on demagoguing and fear-mongering based on the idea that if Joe Biden is elected, that your suburb, your American dream is going to be undermined, that your neighborhood is not going to be safe anymore, that all of a sudden crime and infestation is going to come to your neighborhood. This is what he's running on. Suburban voters are pouring into the Republican Party because of the violence in Democratic-run cities and states. If Biden gets in, this violence is coming to the suburbs and fast. You could say goodbye to your American dream. This is what he's running on. All right. So in the New York Times piece, this is what the author posited. He said, just days after returning from Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Trump staunchly backed law enforcement and did not mention the name of Jacob Blake, the black man shot 7 times in the back by the police, Mr. Trump issued an order on Friday to purge the federal government of racial sensitivity training that his White House called divisive and anti-American propaganda. The president then spent much of his weekend tweeting about his action, presenting himself as a warrior against identity politics. This is a sickness that cannot be allowed to continue, he wrote of such programs. Please report any sightings so we can quickly extinguish. He reposted a tweet from a conservative outlet hailing his order. Sorry, liberals. How to be anti-white in 101 is permanently canceled. Read this right here. Not in generations has a sitting president so overtly declared himself the candidate of white America. While Mr. Trump's campaign sought to temper the culture war messaging at the Republican National Convention last month by showcasing black and Hispanic supporters who denied that he is a racist, the president himself has increasingly made appeals to the grievances of white supporters a centerpiece of his campaign to win a second term. Donald Trump is as anti-war as he is anti-racist. Donald Trump is as anti-racist as he is anti-war, meaning he's not, meaning he is a racist. And these are dog whistles. This is a bullhorn. He's shouting to all of the white people across America saying, hey, if you elect Joe Biden, those colored people are going to come to your neighborhoods and it's going to be this is something straight out of the 60s. The language. And the problem is that this appeals to any percent of America. The fact that this appeals to any percentage of America is the problem in and of itself about this country. But Donald Trump knows that. He knows that racist appeal is so deeply ingrained in American culture that it was his way to get to the White House in 2016. And if he's lucky, it could be his pathway back to the White House in 2020. Patron party coming up.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. All right, let's get ready to finish out this public show. I want to talk about Ruby Bridges really quickly. And the reason I want to talk about Ruby Bridges is because today, September 8th, is her 66th birthday. If you recall, Ruby Bridges is the young girl. She was, at the time, a very young elementary school girl who was on the front lines of desegregating schools there in New Orleans, Louisiana, based on the decision of the Supreme Court. I'm bringing up her story because it never ceases to amaze me how far removed we are not from Jim Crow America. And this is pertinent because so many times in this country, we are told to get over all the things that happened in this country to black people. We're told to do that because it's in the past. Well, Ruby Bridges is only 66 years old. Ruby Bridges is younger than my parents, which means my parents and probably quite a few of your parents in your audience were in America, in American schools during the time of segregation, which, if we go one step further, suggests to me that there are people in political power now who were alive and well during segregation. Go one step further and ask the question, what side of the debate do you think the 72, 73-year-old Donald Trump was when Ruby Bridges was integrating school? She was in elementary school. Donald Trump was probably in high school. What side of the argument do you think that he was on? A lot of the people who are in power now are in that age bracket where they had fully formed opinions. Whether they were fully informed opinions or not is neither here nor there. They had fully formed opinions based on however they were raised, based on the culture that they were raised in. And even more importantly than using this to condemn the beginnings of these politicians, the Donald Trumps, where they are now, where they were then, I want you to understand that we are not so far removed from the Jim Crow past of this country, such that Ruby Bridges is only 66 years old, but also because Donald Trump knows that he can use unabashed racism as a tool to obtain political power in this country. It's not just the fact that this happened in our recent past. It's the fact that Donald Trump and the Republican Party can still capitalize on the racism that is in this country till this day. Then the Democrats are, hell, white supremacy is a bipartisan problem in this country. Period. But who is making very overt appeals to the racist in this country? Who is making the grand gestures and overtures in every way imaginable to this country? Because he knows that the racist DNA in this country still runs through the blood of people who were alive and well when they didn't want Ruby Bridges to come into their elementary school. Donald Trump. Yes, there is a problem of racism and white supremacy that is bipartisan, and there's not one party that has a monopoly on racism in this country. But there is a party that has mastered it. They have mastered it to the point where now Donald Trump can freely and openly say, if Joe Biden is elected, then there goes the suburbs. And then he can expressly say the reason the suburbs will be gone is because he's going to increase low-income housing and they're going to bring their crime. Donald Trump understands that racism is still a political appeal. That's how he won in 2016. That's how he plans on winning in 2020, in addition to undermining the Postal Service, in addition to undermining the concept of mail-in ballots, in addition to trying to intimidate voters by promising that there's going to be police officers and sheriff's deputies at the polls to make sure that they don't double vote, even though he just told his members, his supporters, to go out and vote twice. That's why all of these things put together, that's why I will be damned if you throw on top of Donald Trump's racism, his bigotry, his xenophobia, everything that he does to foment division in this country, I'll be damned if you throw on top of that the idea that this disingenuous war hawk is actually anti-war. No, not in the year of our Lord 20 and 20. Patrons, stay tuned. A whole lot more show to go. A lot more to go. Everyone else, if you want to access, patreon.com/the BPD show. Otherwise, thank you for being a beautiful audience. I will see you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.